In this lecture, I would like to clarify certain terms, as terms are very important to create our understanding within the process, our cognition about why and what we're doing. It's a part of cognition of the upper Dantian, which is where we nourish the constructive mindset to just know what it is. Questions will arrive, and generally intuitive answers come from the structure that we're working from. And at this point, we have many different religious practices, religions, spiritual practices, spiritual teachers, therapeutic approaches, influencer approaches, general books and ideas that we have around certain terms. And the terms that we're looking at here is mindfulness, presence, and then I'll describe the four arrivals, basically from presence. So just to understand, many conversations I've had with different people, different spiritual teachers, and there doesn't seem to be too much congruence on all of the terms. So here within the sea of awareness, it's important to have this definition. And we're just defining a label for an experience. Once we have the experience, then the labels can fall away just as a reference. But before we have the experience, the words then are symbolic of a direction towards an experience. So we first start off with mindfulness. And here we have the first step towards becoming present. So generally the mind is filled with obsessive thoughts, of compulsive thoughts, cannot stop thinking. The thinking is constructive loops that have come from conditioning, which constantly keep arising. Emotion can be scattered or dominated with a compulsive emotion. You might not be able to feel, or you might have very strong feelings, even down to conditions like fibromyalgia. But within this, we just seem to have no center, no perspective. We might not even realize that there's something out of alignment here, or out of balance. Maybe a small inkling from deep within has risen to the surface to say that maybe there's something outside of this, or I have a memory of when I didn't feel this way, or surely there must be something else, a sort of intuitive arrival. So when we employ mindfulness tools, and there's a section here on the online school of very clear mindfulness tools, and when we start to understand the experience of mindfulness, and these tools are very direct, and we'll be working with mindfulness all the way through the sea of awareness process. Because when we lose presence, there's a series of steps to realize ourselves and invite ourselves to open out as presence. Once again, the first one is mindfulness, just to realize that we're no longer present, or being present with not being present, and a generalization of how to bring ourselves back. Usually when we've disassociated, moved from the body, we're not breathing anymore. We've locked the body out somewhere, we've gone into autopilot, we've left and gone up into a looping thought, and that looping thought we know so well, it actually feels like we're comfortable, we're grounded, and we are somewhere. But then a lot of the symptoms of the body can arrive from this pains, aches in the body, aches in the spine, feelings of just not being happy, which again, of course, we don't like those feelings, so we move off into thoughts. And some of the thoughts could just be around food, or attachments, or compulsion, obsession, addiction. So mindful to come, bring us, invite us softly back to being present. And present here we can refer to from the 8 limbs of yoga. So within the 8 limbs of yoga, we have limbs 7 and 8, which is the last 2 limbs. So generally we've gone through physical practice, energetic practice, internalization, but we're just going to look at the last 2 limbs here, which are 7 and 8. So 7 is dharana. The dharana is a fixed single point of focus. And this is what being present is. It's holding a single point of focus, like a candle flame, or a word, or just being here and now without leaving, going off into the past and future. And then noticing with our mindfulness when we leave, or when we've forgotten that we were focusing on that candle flame. And then we have being present. And from being present, it feels like we're holding a point quite intently. So we become contracted around that point. We can hold that point, which then can become a belief system or an ideal. And when we look into our earliest connections of our splits, breakaways from original essence, it's the objectification, the holding on to something that we are first rooted in some of our earliest sufferings. So this is also a journey back into what we hold on to, what we attach to. Here we're already starting to change what we're attached to, so we're holding on to a present point. That point can be quite intense, but it requires cultivation, coming and going. Don't realize I'm here, whoop, back to the present moment. And some of my students will use the present moment as an achievement. Yep, I'm present now most of the time. I've worked with couples on relationship where there can be upsetness inside the relationship, conflict, that you're just not in presence with me. And actually what somebody's asking for is being present, like a father was to a daughter, or the father was to a son, the mother was to a son. Total disengagement of everything else around, but just holding a single point. So that's the feeling, holding a point, but we might not necessarily have any experience of what's going on around us, any sound. Very strong, a single pointed dimensional focus. And eventually we can hold this focus for 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 minutes, half an hour, all day. So if we're looking to focus ourselves in life towards something or have an achievement, so a lot of ideas here is that we can meditate on something. And we're using something to focus on, dharana. But meditation actually comes afterwards. So then from being present, we can let go of the point. So the feeling is we're holding on to a point that we're no longer holding on to. So this no longer becomes a contractive focus, it becomes an expansion. It's not really an expansion, it's just an inclusion of consciousness that we already are. And we have a very good meditation here of 4 points of the inclusion, of being present with different parts of ourselves, our inner body, our external body, the present moment, and the environment that we arrive within. So we start to include different qualities of being present or conscious present into presence. And we start to expand these. We start to notice that one will pull me away, one idea, one mantra, one thought, and I'm present with it, but then I've lost presence, so I've contracted. So then the 8th limb of yoga here is dhyana, it's meditation. So actually we're now on the edge of meditation, where we're no longer going to hold or fixate on something or contract around a point, but we're expanding out. And the beauty of presence is the arrival. It's the arrival without a tool. It's the arrival without holding on to anything. It's like arriving at a buffet of life experiences, already feeling satisfied. And in that, consciousness is very awake, very clear, but expanded and infinite. And as we arrive in presence, we start to, for a lot of us, have the first experience of what presence really is. For a lot of people, it's surprising. A lot of the students and the clients which I've worked with arrive in presence. And there's issues with arriving in presence, because a lot of the old mind states, the judge, the critic, I should be doing more, the conditions become very strong here. So then we enter into the first arrivals. And the first arrival is just the arrival of presence. And generally being held by a facilitator through direct experience, presence can feel very nourishing, very profoundly deep, very simple, but a very strong experience. And then we can lose this. So the first arrival is just knowing what presence is. And really this is the start of our journey. Through the Life Force Dynamics Qigong, through our self-inquiry, it's based in presence and what takes us out of presence. And mindfulness, to be present, to arrive into presence. So once we have and understand as an experience our being as presence, we then move towards the second arrival, which is the coming and going. What takes me out of presence? What brings me back? So we have a direction of the first 3 tools into coming and going, the second arrival. Third arrival becomes like a pure lens. There's no longer coming and going. We are 95% presence, and it becomes a clear lens. It's a beautiful state where the process is happening spontaneously. But there can still be moments of being pulled back into the coming and going. And as the process deepens, there's stronger charges of psychic energy and emotion which can come up to pull us out of the third arrival. And then the fourth arrival is unification, where the process is spontaneously happening in the background without it even being a process. Everything that's available within consciousness, within complete awareness, arrives and is present as we are infinite total consciousness. And here there's no arrival, it's just a sense of completion and beingness. So I hope this has given a clear understanding of mindfulness tools. So mindfulness section in the online course. And here in the mindfulness we also enter being present. So dharana tools, fixed, pointed, focused tools, which open out then into presence. And there's a beautiful tool which moves us through being present into presence, and just experience each layer, each knowingness that we've arrived. And then the label just becomes a term, umbrella for the experience underneath. And then our journey through the whole of the sea of awareness process, included with self-inquiry, notion of clarity, and Life Force Qigong dynamics, then become the presence, the vehicle, the vessel of presence for everything to arrive as its pure essence and be directly experienced.